Hi again guys, and welcome to episode 7 of Spirit of Le Mans, the review series where I'll be evaluating the pros and cons of each of the purpose-built Le Mans prototypes that appear on Gran Turismo 6. So as you can see in this episode, we'll be featuring the Audi R10 TDi, versions of which actually won the 2006, 2007 and 2008 Le Mans 24-hour races. It's also the most powerful Le Mans prototype on GT6, and also has the highest top speed of any of the prototypes. So now let's go out to the track, first of which is our city track of Monaco. So as we've said before, the most important attributes for your prototype to have on a tight city track such as Monaco are your low speed handling, your traction, your brakes, your acceleration and your overall drivability. So how does the R10 perform in these areas? Well, for low speed handling, first off, unfortunately I'm only going to give it a 3 out of 5, because although it's not necessarily a bad car, it's not undrivable, but it's definitely not the best of Le Mans cars. It's quite skittish because it has so much power and so much torque. It has a very, very high tendency to wheel spin, and overall it's just not the best handling of prototypes for city tracks. Now for acceleration, it's got a strong 5, and you'd expect that from the most powerful prototype in the game. It accelerates astonishingly quick. More mid-range, but also low-end is very quick as well. For brakes, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, because the brakes do slow it down, but they're not quite a strong 5 out of 5, because they do sometimes kind of feel that they're not quite going to slow you down quick enough. So overall, on a city track, I'm going to give this car a 3 out of 5. So not that great considering how powerful and how good you'd expect the car to be, but not necessarily awful. So now let's go to our moderate speed test track at Ascari. Now, even though the R10 didn't perform that well on a city track, it does start to come more into its own on moderate speed technical tracks such as Ascari, tracks where you can really put that huge power and torque and straight line performance to better use. Now I'm still not saying it's perfect, it's definitely not. It still has a strong tendency to wheel spin, but it does definitely come into its own more on a track like this. Now for its mid-range handling, which is what's more important on circuits like this, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5, because it's still not perfect, but it is definitely better than on city tracks. And on technical tracks overall, I'm actually going to give it a 5 out of 5, because although, like I just said, the handling still isn't perfect, if you master the car, which may take you slightly longer than with some of the other prototypes, it will serve you well on a track like this. It will produce good lap times, and it's a competitive racing car. So it does get a 5 out of 5, because it is up there with the best of them. Now you'd probably think of this car's main rival as being the Peugeot 908, which it is. But it handles in a completely different way to the Peugeot. Its performance is a completely different method, completely different way of driving, and if you go into it expecting a 908, you're probably going to be disappointed, because it's not quite as easy to drive, but if you stick with it, it's quicker. So overall, yeah, on a moderate speed track like this, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 5. So now finally, let's go to our high speed track of Spa. So here we are finally on our high speed test track of Spa, and as you'd expect, the Audi really comes into its element the most on a track like this, where you can really use all that tremendous power, torque, and especially mid-range and top-end performance. Now the handling is still a little bit skittish, because on any track you're going to have lower speed corners, but overall the R10 is superb for high-speed tracks like Spa, Le Sarthe obviously, since that's what prototypes are built for, and other tracks that have very long straight sections such as Monza and Silverstone, tracks like that. But overall, it's very good on high-speed tracks. I'm going to give it a rating of 5 out of 5 for high speed tracks, so the same as what it scored on moderate speed tracks. As far as overall drivability, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 because it's not perfect, but it's definitely not bad. If you learn to drive it well, it is a good car for certain tracks. But even when you do learn to drive it well, it's still never going to be the fastest on the majority of tracks that you use it on. The main tracks where this car would be beneficial to use would be tracks like Lasarte, where you've really got those long straights to use all of the car's power. So it's a 4 out of 5 on overall drivability. As far as high-end handling, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 5 because, again, it's not perfect, but it is definitely better than its low-speed handling. So that's it for the actual testing part, so now let's go back to the garage for an overall roundup. So overall, the R10 is a pretty good Le Mans car, but you do have to make sure that you only use it in the right circumstance, on the right track, and against the right opposition. The main advantage of using the R10 is definitely its straight line power. In a straight line, literally no other Le Mans prototype is as quick, not even the Pascalo Hybrid or the Mazda LM55. For top speed, it's also, as we said, the quickest of all the prototypes. Its main downside, though, is definitely its wheel spin, which, funnily enough, is actually also due to that massive power, which gives it its main advantage. So reducing the power can pretty much cancel out most of the issues of wheel spin, but that kind of defeats the point of upgrading the car, since most of the other prototypes cope better with their high power than the R10 does. So limiting the power just kind of undermines the whole advantage of the car, really. But if you feel that you prefer to do that, by all means do so. So all in all, the R10 is definitely a car for people who have more experience driving prototypes and who maybe fancy a bit more of a challenge. If you learn how to drive it, it will do you well. It will do good lap times, it's competitive, especially on high speed tracks, and it's definitely not a bad car. But yeah, it's definitely for people who have at least some experience in racing prototypes. So as always, I'll put all the ratings that this car achieved in the video description alongside the lap times that it got on each of the 3 tracks. And as always, thanks for watching.